Record. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pitch a Home Run conference here at the Franklin International Independent Film Festival. My name is Doris, and I'm the CEO of Synapse Publishing and Entertainment, and I'm happy to introduce our host for the session, which is Nancy Pitts. Nancy is a board member of the International Board of Women in Film and Television International, WIFTI, and she is, more importantly, the founder and executive director of this wonderful film festival, which we hope you've been enjoying all week, along with our auction that's been going on and the excellent expert panels that are up today for your viewing. So go to FIIFF.org if you haven't seen it already. So without further ado, I'm going to let Nancy take the reins here. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. My name is Nancy Pitts. I'm the founder director of FIIFF, and I would like to welcome each of the panelists here today. Happen to know both of these gentlemen personally, which is really thrilling. And I'd like to welcome everybody else who's going to be watching this today virtually, and those who will be watching it online, because we've had a lot of interest. Every time Corky comes, he's the most popular event himself in one person at the Franklin Festival. I'd like to welcome David DeBoard and Corky both, but I'd like to start with Dave. Dave, what are you doing up? What are you up to right now? And how did I find you? And how do you know Corky?
I'm back. Just as you were introducing me, I disappeared. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. I think you asked me what I'm doing recently. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So of course, like most independent filmmakers, I'm working on multiple projects. I'm under contract on a couple of screenplays right now, and also, as the screenwriter, and also in a producing capacity, and one of those projects is actually the legal counsel is my good friend Corky, who I will be interviewing, or at least we'll be going back and forth during this panel. Beyond that, working on multiple projects in various stages of development. There's a TV show that I'm in development with, and beyond that, just and something else. A recent development. I was just hired to write a novel for a video game company, so we'll see how that goes.
Very cool.
All right, so now I'd like to introduce
before you
my
get
good
there,
friend.
Before you get there, David,
okay.
How did you come to the Franklin International Film Festival? How do we connect? And I wondered if you were still mentoring students as well. Because your students
up until this, up until this school year, I've been a film professor for a long time. I'm full-time in the industry now, but for a long time I was mentoring, and I'm still mentoring. I still, I have students who call me, and some of the people that I'm mentoring weren't even officially my students, but are just people that, that I've met at the different film festivals. Would you help me? Would you give me advice or whatever? And I'm always happy to do that. So a little.
I think he froze for a second there, David DeBoard.
There we go.
You're back.
Sorry, I'm in the Ozarks. A little bit more about myself too is I do like Corky. I do panels all over the place. So I do panels. Like I was set to do a panel at South by Southwest until I got canceled. I'm going to do a couple for them virtually coming up. I've done panels at Sundance. I've done, and then as far as Cannes goes, I work with the American Pavilion, and I help the American Pavilion put together panels and that kind of thing. And if I could brag just for a second on Corky and myself, Corky was in one of my panels, And so the funny thing was, right after our panel, we had the legendary director, John Carpenter. This is at Cannes. And we had the legendary director, John Carpenter. And we found out later that we actually, despite John Carpenter coming after us, we actually had the highest number of people who attended a panel at the world famous Cannes Film Festival in the American Pavilion. So that's something we feel, proud about. But but anyway, yeah. So let's do this. Let me introduce, before I lose signal again, let me introduce my good friend Corky Kessler. Real quick, Corky, I want you to unpack more about yourself, but I'll just say real quickly, legendary entertainment lawyer and also executive producer. He's been involved for decades in several productions, not only film, but also live musicals, Driving Miss Daisy, a number of others. And anyway, without any further ado, before we get into our topic, Corky, could you just tell us a little bit more about what you're up to now and a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll talk about pitching.
All right, but before I talk about pitching, I'd like to just make about a minute presentation on grandfathering under 181. Dave. Okay, so I've known Dave for a very long time, and Dave and I have been very, very infamous for putting on probably one of the best parties at the Cannes Film Festival. We had a pajama party. When people get dressed up at Cannes, we got dressed down, and 350 people came to the villa that I rented in PJs. So we've been very fortunate to rally around Cannes, and Cannes the underground Cannes said that if you didn't go to Corky's pajama party, you missed the best party at the Cannes Film Festival. Okay, so I've been involved in this for a very long time. I was voted, very fortunately, although it doesn't mean much, the best entertainment lawyer and executive producer in the United States. And I'm very proud of the fact that about 66,000 people voted for me, although I paid 65,000 of those people. And I've been very...
That still leaves 1,000 people who voted for you. That's still a lot.
Yeah. So I've been very active, and I'm working with some great people, and I'm very fortunate. 99.9% of my clients are dear friends of mine and part of my extended family, and they're very valuable people to me. Now I'm in private practice. It's the law offices of Hal Corky Kessler, and I've been very, very busy the last few months grandfathering projects, Section 181, before it expires at the end of this year.
Yeah, and actually, before we get into pitching, why don't we just tackle 181? I know that you're working on multiple 181 projects, and I know that you and I are working on one in particular that but there's an A-list act and all of that, and we're doing everything that we need to do before we go into the main part of the casting to ensure that it is a 181 film. So why is that important? Why is it important to make sure that a production, at least this year while it's still active, that we make it a 181? Corky, why is that big? Why is that important?
Okay. 181 is a federal incentive whereby spending, it doesn't have to be shown, spending triggers the advantage. And once you spend the investor's money, it's 100% loss to the investor. And I've wiped out over 250 people's federal taxes because they've invested in film and or television. So spending triggers it. Now, that's been around since 2000. But at the end of this year, December 31st, at the end of this year, 181 is going to be gone. And what is very critically important for those of you, it's still time you can grandfather your projects. And once it's grandfathered for life. There's no end date. It could be television, it could be film, it could be theater, but it's grandfathered for life. There's no end date. That's critically important why projects are being grandfathered. What grandfathered? Your projects are one, you need a LLC filed.
We
You
lost him.
what?
We lost you. You say LLC filed and then go from there. I can't hear you, hon.
You need to file an LLC. You need to have a screenplay or teleplay, or you have to have a play. You need to have 1 day of photography or performance with some dialogue by the end of this year. It could be animation, it could be a doc. There's no bottom figure. It could be $100 movie. Okay, but you can expense up to 15 or $20 million to be a loss. And finally, you need your investor documents that I prepare, but you do not need investors. Again, you do not need investors. And everything that you need to grandfather, it can be amended. It can be changed in certain parts. So it's very fluid. And the last thing that you need to make sure that it's 181 for life is make the election of 181 on the first tax return filed for the film. So I'm grandfathering now, working on another 16 projects that want to be grandfathered. You've got 24, 25 days left to contact me to grandfather your film or television. But once it's gone, it's gone. It's the best incentive in decades. It's like the goose that laid the golden egg. And once it's gone, it's gone. So that's the summary of 181. 75% has to be performed and paid for in the United States, and 25% can be spent or paid in any foreign country. So you could piggyback incentives. I can guarantee an investor, for example, if they have a 181, and if they pick a good state that has a good incentive and do their post in Canada, that there could be recovery of the investor money of about 80 cents on the dollar, and only 20 cents on the dollars at risk. There's no other business that you can do that for. Now, my pitch is done, Dave. So you...
No. That was exactly where I was going to go with that. Was just the reason why 181 is so important is because as producers, we have to be smart. We have to show fiduciary responsibility, for the, for the investors and protect their investment. And so that not only will they be protected on the investment of the film that you're working on at present, but hopefully after that they'll say, hey, Corky knows what he's doing, let's keep doing that, and that's the idea. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's jump into just pitching in general. Okay. So pitching, of course, takes place across the board, whatever you're doing, whether you're a producer or a writer, an EP, whatever you are, you're having to pitch all the time. So what I want to do is, the first thing is I will cover real quickly the elevator pitch, and then Corky, what I'd like you to do is sort of talk us through the longer pitch, the what we call the water bottle tour. So first I'll do the elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch, it started years and decades and decades ago in the golden era of Hollywood, when when Samuel Goldwyn and his brothers and some of the other studio heads, they'd come to downtown Hollywood, they'd go into their building, and they would walk through the lobby, and all of these screenwriters and aspiring screenwriters would wait in the morning until these big wigs, they call, in fact, an industry name for them is big mockers, M-A-C-H-E-R-S. They'd wait for these big mockers to come in, and then they would chase these big wigs running the studios into the elevator, literally. And what would happen is, as the elevator started rising to the top floor, which was their penthouse office, these guys would point at the writers and say, go. And the writers would literally have just a moment to say, here's my, screenplay. And so they would be like, nah, get off. So then that next floor, the writers would get off until finally, if you made it all the way to the top, then they're like, okay, follow me in. And now that'll be the longer pitch, which I'm going to have Corky talk about in a second. So let me give the classic elevator pitch that I love to give. I think it encapsulates, everything that should be in a pitch and definitely should be in an elevator pitch. It's the pitch of the classic movie from the 70s, which won an Oscar, called Rocky, Balboa. It's Stallone made the film. It launched his career. He never looked back. And it's a great film. It still holds up. And here is the elevator pitch. Again, it's got to be very fast. Here's the elevator pitch for Rocky. A Philadelphia club fighter takes a shot at the world's heavyweight title. That's it. That's the pitch. I'll real quickly analyze it. You need to make sure that you're referencing the main character, okay, Philadelphia club fighter. You need to, in some way, sort of inflect what the world is. Philadelphia club fighter, right? So then that's saying, okay, it's downtown, it's urban, it's gritty, so that covers the world. And then finally, what is this goal that main character is going for? And the main character is to fight and survive against the world's heavyweight, the world's best fighter. Okay, so keep those three things in mind. Make sure that you don't have to name the character, but you need to mention the main character. You need to somehow insinuate or mention the world. And finally, you need to talk about that main goal that they're driving at, that's going to drive the whole movie. All right, so I pitched that. They're like, okay, kid, come on in and pitch me. All right, now I'm kicking it back to you, Corky, because you've been in a lot of these pitches. So we've moved past, someone comes to you, Corky, and they're like, let me pitch you. And you're like, give me your elevator pitch. They give you their elevator pitch. You're like, all right, I'm interested. Then they come in, they sit down, and in Hollywood, a lot of times they call this the water bottle tour, because literally when representation of these screenwriters will bring them in to talk to producers, studio heads, etc., they'll bring them into an office, and they'll put a water bottle in front of them. That's the water bottle tour. And then they'll get roughly 20 minutes to pitch themselves. So now, Corky, if you would, take it from there. We've gone into the office. They're pitching you. What should they lead with? What does it look like? What is an effective pitch? The longer pitch at that point. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, listen, before I do that, there are different pitches depending on who you're pitching to. There's a different pitch to investors. There's a different style of a pitch to an actor, different style of pitch to an agent or a manager, and there's a different pitch to a studio. And so you have to tailor your pitch. Well, the first thing I'm going to tell the person is they have to wow me. They've got to tell me enough of the story where I'm so engaged in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes long, because if they don't engage me, then I'm daydreaming. I don't get engrossed in the story. So once they get my attention, and it doesn't mean they have to, because there are a lot of other people who might give them more, but once they get mine, or once they get me involved, then I'm involved. And then I tell them how and what we need to move forward. But if they don't get me involved to a great extent, and they still convince me to the extent that they really have a good story, I'll ask them to give me their treatment, not their screenplay, their treatment, because I charge to read and process and give oral business review for screenplays. But I would read a treatment, okay? And then if they've got me by the treatment, then we talk further. But at the end of the day, I have to do in my own mind, is it marketable? All right, because for me, it doesn't matter who stars in it, who's going to be involved in a team at that point. In my mind, can I explain to someone down the line that it's marketable and why? Because once I send it out, and I send it out to people who are very much part of the business, including Academy Award winners, they will read it because I send it to them. And if I send them stuff that they don't think is good, then I burned a bridge. Okay, so someone said to me, who are you, Corky, to say it's marketable? And I respond, I'm the person that can make your project happen. All right, but at the end of the day, there's got to be a hook. I'll give you an example, okay? And this is going back many years. The state of Illinois, many years ago, not the current one that we had a screenwriting contest. And the winner of the screenwriting contest, the lady who was the film commissioner, sent the lady who's the screenwriter and her husband to me. And I read the screenplay, and it was called Lonely Street. And I'll never forget what happened. They pitched me. I read the screenplay, and the screenplay was about a gentleman in his 50s who's an ad executive who on his birthday, on Halloween, told everyone to come to a party that he was hosting, but they all had to get dressed up as their favorite dead entertainer. And his assistant, who's very shy, got dressed up as Marilyn Monroe. And then he had an Elvis impersonator come and impersonate. And then it's the love affair of Elvis and Marilyn Monroe as the screenplay plays out. It was a wonderful, beautiful, melodic screenplay. I sent it to Russell Crowe, my friend, because I knew that he wanted to play Elvis. He loved it. He loved the screenplay. He loved it so much that he had another writer and him come on board, and they worked on the screenplay. He paid out of his own money a couple $100,000 to work the screenplay out, and he wanted to play Elvis. Then the budget was $4 million. And Sam Raimi was putting up the $4 million. And we were going to make the movie until her husband, for the first time ever, said to me, I want to direct the movie. I said, you want to what? Now, she's sitting there. Her husband has never directed a movie in his life. I said to my client, the female, I said, we can't do that. You can't. And he said, and by the way, I don't want Sam Raimi to fund the movie. I said, look, this is going nowhere. And to tell you the truth, to make a long story short, the project never happened. I got rid of my clients. Crow tried to buy the screenplay from her, the rights to it. She would not sell it to him. So there are stories like that. Even if the pitch is good and you want to work on it, stories like that happen. Dave, the pitch to me starts, ends, or continues with me. And it depends on what the project is about. And I believe everyone has got a good screenplay, has got a good story that they've heard about. or seen or read about that makes a good screenplay. They've at least got one, everyone in the entire world. But it's got to be such a good thread of a story that I got to get hooked.
Corky, I
What are-
want
oh, go ahead.
to ask a question for you that came from one of our folks in the room, and actually I'll let her ask it herself. It's Erin has a question about the difference in pitching. Go ahead,
Okay.
Erin.
And don't I have a question, right, Nan? I have a question for you.
The question. Go ahead, Aaron.
So the question is how would you pitch, or would your pitch change for documentaries versus narratives?
Well, okay. Documentaries have now become very popular. And in fact, Sundance sold more documentaries than any major film festival. Your pitch on a documentary is different because you're not going to pitch to investors normally. You're going to pitch to those causes or those agencies or those people that are sensitive to the subject matter of the documentary. Do you know who Naomi Weiss is? Okay, a famous documentary, and she's won awards, and one of her docs was up for an Academy Award. The difference in what she does and what people in the United States, Canada, and companies there and agencies and fund their own docs. I mean, she's got funding sources through Canada. So she has an advantage that we don't have. So, I mean, documentaries, unless you're Ken Burns or someone like that, a doc, Aaron, has got to be pitched to people that are sensitive to your cause. And there are, Naomi Weiss's current project is on mental youth problems and suicide. And not a very pleasant topic, but a very timely. But there are suicides, and she has talked to people who have killed themselves, and talk to people whose friends and parents told them about people killing themselves down to the age of 5. Okay, and she just put the film out. It's a great documentary. So, but. Aaron, do you do documentaries?
Yes. In fact, The Prison Within's already out.
Do you only do documentaries?
Thus far, I have done documentaries.
Are you currently working on one?
Yes.
Do you want to grandfather it under 181?
Oh, you'll be getting an email from me, Corky. Don't worry.
Okay. So I believe that. Okay, have you started to try to find investors?
We can talk about that offline, but yes.
Okay, all right. So documentaries to me are very important because I learn of subjects that I know nothing about. And the better documentaries that I've seen, leave open questions at the end. They inform me, they enlighten me, they tell me about something I know little or nothing about, and then there's an open question at the end. So what happens now? Where do we go now? Where do we take it? So documentaries to me are very important. And the pitch, you have to have someone to pitch your story, although you probably could, but someone has to be able to pitch their story to the people that are sensitive to their cause and know how to pitch them. And know it's a soft pitch there. It's a soft pitch because they're going to be sensitive to your cause, and you're going to have to convince them why this medium is the best medium to go to the world with their cause.
Oh, sorry. Also, they have to be aware of your call to action, so that when your investor or the sales office needs to believe that call to action is something that can be achieved.
Hey, Corky. So let's talk about one thing that I hear a lot, both in pitches and also when someone reads a screenplay for the first time, is the beginning. There has to be a hook, right? You have to pull in the people that you're pitching, so that you can, so that they'll listen to the rest of it. So take us through the first moment, or the first couple of moments of an effective pitch. What does that look like? What should the people who are watching, what should they practice? What's their strategy for initially grabbing the attention of the people that you're pitching? Should it start with a question? Does it need to be a statement? Should they wear, some sort of outfit that's, what should they do?
Okay, look. I tell people that if they don't feel comfortable pitching, they should find someone to pitch for them, because you've got one opportunity to talk to someone. You want the best person or persons to do the pitch. I'm someone who believes, although it's getting a little softer, that you can't teach pitching. It's more of a personality thing. You either got the personality to pitch or you don't. But I give someone, first of all, for them to get into my office, they're going to have to pitch me as to why I should spend the time to have them come to my office. Okay. But assuming that they have, they've gone a long way, and they've had the ability to have me wonder where they're going. But I believe any pitch, whether it's a minute or a 3-minute pitch, has got to have a wow effect, where the person who's listening to goes, wow. There's got to be something, and don't give a lot of background. Don't go, I want to know the storyline. I want to know where the story goes. I don't want you to spend time about what happened to you and okay, because if I ask you the question, where'd you come up to with the story, you're going to tell me. But I want you to go right into the story and give me something that I'm going to say, oh my God, I can't believe that happened or that was said. That's the wow effect. So once you have the wow effect, then you've sort of hooked me. You've hooked me. Look, there have been films that you've seen that you don't know how they got made. There was a documentary, Aaron, and I'm talking to you because you talked about a documentary that was played at Sundance called Zoo. Did you see it? Did you hear about it? Okay. Well, for those of you who didn't, it's a documentary about a sect of men who have sex with Arabian horses. And it starts out with a gentleman with a ruptured spleen coming into a hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, how does that movie become a Sundance movie? And then I'm thinking to myself, that movie is so out there that Sundance felt, I guess, an obligation to show it. No one bought it, but it was something that was a Sundance, where they had a documentary called The Aristocrats, about one joke that comics told. Same joke. And they all got together and they all told the same joke, and they couldn't get into the club unless they passed. And the joke had the same beginning and the end, and the filler was so filthy and disgusting that each person did, that when I saw that movie at Sundance, I came out and I called my people and I said, we got to buy this movie. This movie will be the largest per theater attendance of any place it shows. It may not show many places, but so, you have to think about who your audience is, Dave. Dave?
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me? Sorry about that. No, okay, all right. So now we talked about the initial moments that are kind of pulling them in. I sometimes, and I don't think it's the same thing for everyone. When I'm telling people about pitching, sometimes I'll say it's a compelling question, or it's a big statement, or something like that. I feel like it's, as the pitch person, you are trying to emotionally engage them so that there's something that stirs, even if it's a nonsense kind of movie, you know, just a farce screwball comedy. There's still got to be something visceral that hits them, and they're like, okay, yeah, like you were saying, like the wow factor. I want to see this. So now, talk to us about, you know, when you're in the middle of it, how do you avoid not getting lost? Because that's one thing that I hear from people who pitch is, I started well, and then all of a sudden I kind of got lost. What are, you know, should you bring note cards? What about rehearsal? What are some good things to think about, you know, in the middle of your pitch?
Well, if you're visual, if you have something visual to show me, like Dave, you had a project that you sent to me that we were working on, that had probably the best visual to try to sell it, and so it could be a trailer. It could be a visual, trailer, or that they could, you know, I think people want to talk more than they should. Once they've scored and once they have my attention, I think they should know enough to stop. They'll know that they have my attention, because I'll interrupt them from time to time to ask questions. Like I see my client, they're Mark Barron. Mark, hi. Okay, so Mark Barron has got a comedy that has won all these awards. I mean, literally tens, 20, so many awards that you can't even put on a page. And then I'm wondering, it's one of the funniest and still currently good projects. And I can't believe he can't find people to fund it or to get involved. So sometimes you have such a good project and such a good screenplay that it just doesn't move forward, but it wins all these awards, all these contests. So there's a guy that I know who's a screenwriter, whose last name is Pomerantz. He wrote a screenplay called Caught, Caught. Mark, it took him 25 years to get the project made. Not that we have 25 years, but it finally got made. Okay, but you have to have someone that's with you. You have to start building your team. You have to, for example, I believe a good story with the right member of team, a producer, a director, an actor, a production company, a studio, the right team and the right project, money will find it. Money will find it. So that's how I sort of respond.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, what about the end? How do you, so you capture in the beginning, you know, maybe a visual or some other things are good. And then finally at the end, how do you end it? Do you leave them with something, or is it better to say, look, I'll come in and pitch it again if you want? What should you do at the end?
Okay. Well, let me start out by giving you a story of how I got pitched on the client that I referred to you. Okay. I met he and his wife, who's a Grammy-nominated singer, at this breakfast place in Nashville, Tennessee. And I walked up to him and we started talking. And then he started telling me about this country singer that became a hermit. And it was a very successful country singer. And then his whole world collapsed and he became a hermit. And the story intrigued me so much. And then they sent me a book about him. And I read the book and said, this story intrigued me so much that I sent him to Dave to write the screenplay. And I'm still waiting to see the screenplay, parenthetically. But so he got me by a person who was a very successful country singer having his world turned down and becoming a lost soul and a hermit, and how he tries to dig out and can never make it, and what finally happens to him. It's a great story of survival. It's a great story on how you become successful and then something happens or someone shoots you down and tries to bring you down. I mean, great story, great thread of a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, we got 6 minutes left. Okay.
Yeah, we've got
Okay.
to get to questions, but I've just received messages from a couple of people saying they were not able to get in. So there's some more
Oh,
people
no.
that'll be looking to this online. It's okay. One of them's Karen Espinant, so she
Oh.
can access this later as well.
So did you have, were there questions that were coming in, that were messaging in, or were we seeing questions that were being messaged in for Corky?
Therese, do you have any questions there?
Sorry, I was trying to let Karen in. She just wrote to me now on the link, so to try to get the link.
Okay. Well, I have a question that was sent to me. Let me go find it now.
I wanted to just open it up because everybody's on mute to make sure that if there are any questions, we have 5 minutes left to answer some questions. So Patty, Dante, whomever, and I'll try to get Karen the link here.
Karen or Aaron, do you have a question?
Need me to fill the time and make one up?
I'm
I'm good at that.
my contact information, Aaron?
Well,
I know one question that I heard from people was that, does it help or hurt during the short pitches to show a piece of the film if the film's already been made or a piece is out? What is the preference of judges when you enter competitions?
Well, hey, Corky, that's just like one of the projects that I brought to you. You know what you were referencing. We had a sizzle reel. It was very appealing, and then we pitched the film, right?
which works, I think, and it's important to say if they know how to pitch. But if you bring a sizzle reel in and then you can't speak to the sizzle reel and there's a chance the sizzle reel doesn't work for whatever reason, David, I'm a firm believer that you have to have that down pat and know it too, correct?
Corky?
Well, look. I'm a little visual when it comes. I mean, I do it, but I've read. Although I charge a little to read the screenplay, I have to preface that. But I've read some great screenplays, and I've read one that we're working on now. Do you know who Rudy Langless is? Okay, he produced Hurricane, Sugar Hill, Redemption. He's an Academy Award producer. Well, we're working on a project called Rialto. And he pitched me this project 9 years ago at Shutters in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Santa Monica.
And the subject matter is in the 50s. It's in the South. A senator's son comes home from the army and doesn't know what to do. And he goes to an old-time movie theater that's still open, run by this lady. And he goes there from day to day, and he gets a job to clean up and stuff because he doesn't know what to do. But then he finds out that there are different ladies that with suitcases come and sit in the same seat every week. And he wondered, and he was afraid to ask her, why does a different lady with a suitcase come and sit at the same seat every week? And we turned out and we found out that the lady who owned the theater did abortions in the basement. And then it took off from there, from the senator, from the father who's the senator finding out, and a great story. And it's taken 6 or 7 years for him to decide that now's the time to really do it. So we're working on that. And he's got great talent that wants to be involved. And we've got a movie called Miles and Me about the last stage of Miles Davis' life. And we've got Denzel Washington and a few other people. And by the way, we grandfathered both of those projects for 181. But we get involved in good stories. I'm very fortunate that I read good screenplays. And some screenplays that I read and then I charge people to read, I just say that I can't help you. I just can't get my hand around the subject matter. I'm not too good on sci-fi. I'm not good on horror movies, but those are the two genres that I'm not too confident about. Other than that, docs and features, I'm very attuned to.
Do we have, I mean, I always have questions, but I want to make sure that we give the people that are watching an opportunity. Do we have other questions that people are messaging in? Anyone else?
I actually have a question.
Okay.
So just going on top of docs, pitching docs that have already been made or projects in general, is there something that you would suggest stressing in your pitch for a project that's already been filmed as opposed to not?
This is a doc?
It is a doc, yeah.
Okay, and what's the subject matter?
Sort of it's culture and family life, sort of a drama doc.
Yeah, all right. There are a lot of distributors that are sensitive to those kind of stories. Find a distributor of docs. There are ways to find out who they are. Find someone who you become part of your team that knows where to find the doc distributors, and then move from there. So find someone who can introduce you to doc distributors.
Okay, awesome.
Hi, Dante. I can introduce you to a doc distributor.
Oh, perfect.
Just private
There's
messaging.
easy way. There's
will
another
do.
easy way to uncover those by looking at the top festivals in the world, and then when checking which films were purchased and who or who's distributing those films, and then you can determine what that lane is, and then determine if it's something you're doing is something they would be interested in, because you also don't want to waste your time by talking to a lot of people who are not going to get or want or be able to sell what you've made.
Okay, and if anyone wants to read a funny, very topical screenplay, contact Mark Barron, who's there. And Mark, could you can you put in your chat your information on how to contact you?
Or could you give us your elevator pitch, Mark, so we know what joke and funniness we're talking about?
Mark, I give a pitch.
All right, it's a comedy about computer geeks, the lottery, and the mob.
Sounds good already.
That's the pitch.
Sounds great. Congratulations.
Winner of 29 awards at festivals. In fact, 4 years ago, coming up, I was at Sundance with Corky, where we pitched to a live panel. And we tied for first place. And one of the one of the things that got their attention was we started off the pitch by handing them real lottery tickets.
So in that situation, Mark, my question would be, and also to the rest of the panel, would be, what do you think is lacking either in the pitch or the content that has stalled the project?
For us, it's more of a matter that we just haven't been finding investors. We have a few that are following it, that are very interested, but they're waiting for someone else to make the first move.
That happens a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in and say, the fact that any movie actually gets completed and distributed is an according to Hoyle miracle. I mean, there are so many, it's a cautionary tale. There's so many films out there that have great scripts, even great cast, and then it's just like, for one reason or another, they just didn't there are even some that get put together and have great casts, and they still just don't catch any traction. So it's if we knew the answer to that, if we knew the answer to that, Corky would be even richer than he already is. He would be sending me cigars.
Well, yeah, and look, as Dave said, cigars are the best thing to give to someone, because if someone else smokes a cigar with you, you have an hour. It's the best. And if the other person smokes a cigar and you smoke a cigar with the person, a drink is 10 minutes, a cigar is an hour. So Matthew McConaughey, he and I got together over a cigar. We had an hour. Kevin Bacon and I got a cigar together for an hour.
And I always say, for the women, go get a manicure together. So if you're doing lunch, so there you go.
There you go.
I like the drink idea better myself, but hey.
Do you know how to contact me?
Yeah, me? Yeah, I already emailed you.
At AOL.com.
Are we at that? Are we at that?
Yes,
end?
we are. I was going to say,
thank you to everybody for being on this panel and here with us today.
The best is Nancy. So if you get Nancy to be part of your project, I think I'm a good networker and schmoozer. Nancy's better. She is one of the best friends to a project you could have. She doesn't give herself enough credit.
Here.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody. Dave, on the road, thank you so much for joining us. Corky, for your expertise. The people that were here as our live audience today, so they'll hear you. Mark Barron for being our subject matter, expertise here. Please put anything into the chat, and especially Nancy and the film festival. Enjoy the rest of the films that are up today too. And
there are films up today. Awards are tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. There'll be a posted tonight. There'll be a thing asking you to reach out to me for the Zoom connect on that, and I'll be letting everybody in. But at 3:00 we'll award the awards for this festival. But I want to say, if you need to reach me, it's director@FIIFF.org. And I can reconnect you, as can Doris, with the other people who are sitting here today, and those are yet to be here who might see it and love what you're thinking of doing.
Would you send me the Zoom for it, Nancy, for tomorrow?